video, we wanted to share a little bit about the brain and the way that it can impact your behaviours and your responses around food. So the brain has lots of different sections to it, and they all play different roles. So we have different areas that kind of control memory, the motor skills, so our kind of physical abilities, language, intellect. There's also the pituitary gland that sends signals to let the body know when we need different hormones released. So this is again coming back to the beliefs and environment and these different practices, because depending on the way that we perceive our environment and how we respond to that, it's sending these signals back and forward from the brain to respond and release different chemicals. So it can be releasing chemicals, the fight or flight like cortisol, or different neurotransmitters for happy hormones and sex hormones, or it can be telling us that we need to raise our blood sugar or lower it. So it's very much to do with the internal, external. So whatever's going on around us, and then how we perceive it, how we respond, and then our body then responds. So it's this little kind of dance between the external and internal all the time.
Yeah, and there's like the chemicals are going to release based on those things. So like adrenaline, like you were saying, that's the fight or flight. Adrenaline for the hunger.
Yeah.
So if you see or smell food, you're gonna be hungry, or your body's going to get ready for food. So it's to notice how all of these things can affect all of what's going on up here as well.
The brain is always kind of working with the body and with the environment. And we have this nerve called the vagus nerve that runs from the base of the skull up into the brain and down past our lungs, the heart, the gut. And this is the part that controls the parasympathetic nervous system. So this is to let us know whether we need to rest, recover, or whether it's fight or flight. So there's lots of things we can do to regulate this. So we can do a lot of things to self-regulate this. Just really simple things like breathing, deep breathing, slowing everything down, letting the body know that it's safe and it can relax and rest and digest.
And the breath is quite powerful. We've loads of breathing practices recorded from yoga. And yoga has so many of the ones that actually regulate that nerve. And the alternate nostril breathing really balances both sides of the brain. So it's like knowing that we actually have these tools that can balance the internal externally just by us doing something. So it's kind of important to connect to these things if you have got things going on that would cause your brain to be imbalanced or the chemicals to be out of whack, which is binge eating, like sugar, spiking it up and down too much caffeine, making your adrenaline go out of whack, too much of a stimulating environment, too much stress in your environment, all of those things. To know that we can change as many of these things as possible, or kind of bring practices in and awareness in to help to give you the best tools available and the best chance for a fresh start with your patterns.
Yeah, and that's it. It's all these different patterns that are in the nervous system. So you've got these messages going from the body to the brain and the brain to the body the whole time, communicating. So we can work with different practices for the brain to change patterns, and we can also work on the body level, which is super important, getting back into the body, and from a feeling level going into the nervous system to rewrite and rewire the nervous system patterns that are just on repeat, because at some point maybe we've had a trauma or an experience that was in contraction or fight or flight, and then this messaging system kind of gets on a glitch and it just repeats, even though now we're not in that fight or flight experience. It's like we're just still replaying it. So there's lots of different things we can do, like the breathing, or there's different sound therapies, movement therapies, things like PDTR, tapping. There's all these incredible tools that we can use to break these patterns, and the pattern practice that we use as well, which is for the brain patterns. So this is going back to the dendrites. And this is in the brain when we have different repetitions of behavioural patterns that we have. And it creates this groove in the brain, and it's just this electrical current, this neurotransmitter response and memory in the brain. And it's really just the body and the brain's way of trying to find the best way for you to feel a certain way or to stay safe. So we have this kind of reward loop system as well in the brain, where there's a reward center. So when we do certain things that make us feel good, it sets off these neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin, and these are the happy hormones that make us feel great. So just certain foods, sex, certain TV programs, getting likes on your Instagram or social media give you this little boost. So if for some reason maybe you're not fulfilled in other areas in your life, and maybe some of these hormones are a little bit low, this is when we can end up seeking out things externally that give us this boost. And this is where the whole kind of idea of addiction comes in. This is where people feel like they're addicted to things because they keep going back to it. But it's just patterns that we can break. So we end up, our body realizes that the best way to make us feel good might be through eating chocolate. And then this pattern is kind of formed and solidified. And with that, we create this deep groove called a dendrite in the brain. And it's then the path of least resistance. So every time we feel a little bit low, or we're a bit anxious, or something stressful happens, our body's like, oh, remember the chocolate? And it's like, oh yeah, we'll go this way. It's super easy, and it really calms us and soothes us straight away. So it's knowing that our body is just trying to help us, actually. So it can feel, we have this like self-sabotage feeling, but actually it's just the body saying, oh, this is the easiest way we found so far, the alcohol or the food or whatever.
Yeah, we feel like we're actually addicted then, but actually it's just soothing and it's just avoiding something. So it's to know that we need to address the physical imbalances and the chemical imbalances, but also then going to the deeper layer emotionally to see what's actually going on. So it's really like to look at that as a deeper fractal of when we take away those behaviors, what are we left with? What feeling is there? What is present? And this is kind of the core of where we are going with everything. It's getting down to the root fractal of why we have these behaviors and what is being avoided, what is being numbed, what is being soothed, what is the feeling that we have when we go for chocolate. So it's like the food gives us so much information about ourselves, our patterns, our behaviors, and then we have the chemicals going on. So we've got two layers of things to deal with here.
And just knowing that once we do get into that kind of reward loop, it then shuts off our natural supply of serotonin and these hormones. So we're all of a sudden getting these surges because of external things that we're using to try and be happy or to feel loved. And then our body says, oh, we don't need to produce this anymore. So our then base layer starts to get lower and lower and lower. And that's when we start to need more and more and more and more frequently to experience these binges or to look at the phone more frequently. So it's really important to kind of look at this, and like Claire was saying, it's this deeper feeling that we need to look at, because this is never going to be satiated by these external things.
That's why we end up in like all sorts of medication as well. If our brain chemicals go out of balance, we end up in antidepressants, and it's because we've been spiked or externally filling some sort of need for too long, and then when we take that away we get super low. So not having the sugar, and then you have a massive low. And it's kind of to know that sometimes you have to go through a process of actually detoxing from all of that stuff externally, so that you can actually get back to balance, which is why we've developed certain things like our reset program to help the physical actually come back to balance. So you get into the details of what's actually going on in your system, and then you're starting from a clean slate. So you've wiped everything clean, and hopefully your own chemicals will come back into balance. It takes a while, it takes some time, but it's just sticking with it and going through the urges. And this is one thing that I would have had when I had a eating disorder. So it's like going through the stages of the day where you get urges, because our body is smart. It kind of gets used to the patterns, and then at that same point every day, say you're coming home from work and you're in the car, you have the same urge that goes, oh, go get sugar now because you need it. And then the automatic pattern is, like Rosie was saying before, to stop in a petrol station and pick up chocolate, pick up sugar. And then it's like, if you're in that loop every day you're going to do the same thing, and you're going to have the same brain chemical spike at that same time. So it is important to interrupt the pattern, and that's kind of what we've covered in the pattern breaker video. But it's just to emphasize again that that is the point of interrupting it, is to change these chemicals and to do something different, so that you are giving your body a chance to recover from those constant spikes of highs and lows.
And just knowing that all the other different factors, the environment, the gut, your sleep health, these are all things that can create an imbalance with our neurotransmitters and the way that the brain functions. So there's all these layers to it, and everything is connected. So all the beliefs practice, the pattern break, and all these different things are just all interlinked.
Yeah, and just to say as well on the brain, we kind of believe that our brain is separate to our body sometimes, that like this is some other thing, but actually we have one big brain, and that's our whole body. It's all full of nerve endings, and the nervous system is in the whole body, not just the brain. There's actually more nerve endings in the stomach and the heart than the brain. So it's kind of like to know that what we change on these levels are actually going through the whole body, so the heart and the stomach, and that's why the gut's so important, and that's why the feelings are so important as well. So it's one big brain.
So that's the brain video concluded, and thank you for listening. And
Remember, food is not the issue.